This is a video I've been wanting to do for a while, and it's something I've been thinking about. You remember before Ashes Alpha 2 came out, there was all these speculation videos, and I did some of them myself. Actually, I did quite a few of them myself as well. There's a lot of questions surrounding this game, and there was a lot of videos that said that Ashes would solve all these problems. Ashes has solved everything. Ashes has solved world hunger, venereal disease, like people are going to be raw dogging everywhere because no more VD, right? So like Ashes had everything solved. Remember like the Eye of Shoal technology they talked about, and that was supposed to like be perfect at tracking everything in the game, and like they'll be able to ban anybody instantly and all these things. Well, turns out that hasn't worked very well yet. That needs a lot of work still. And then you remember the dynamic server meshing, and people are like, man, they solved the dynamic server meshing, something nobody has solved yet. And somehow Ashes solved it. The game's not out yet. Nobody's played it yet at that time, but it has solved it. And then meanwhile, when you come back to reality, dynamic server meshing is turned off. It hasn't been turned on the whole time. So that's where we're at with that one. And there was a lot of questions about, will it make up for the faults of previous games that it's based on that mostly have all died? Like, for instance, a lot of the games it's based on were very, very hardcore and not casual friendly at all. Is Ashes casual friendly in its current state? It's not at all. And people are going to be like, Rive, it's alpha. What are you talking about, brother? There's a lot to be added. They haven't added a lot of the casual stuff yet. That's fair, I suppose, but at some point, we have to start talking about it because they want feedback on the game. That's why they're doing open development. They do want feedback. In the current state of the game is not in any way casual friendly. And I tend to be more on the hardcore spectrum, not as hardcore as some people in this game, because some people play it literally 20 hours every single day, and I can't do that, but I do play quite a bit, especially when you can compare me to the other content creators, most of which have never hit 25 in the alpha period, and I've hit 25 like 4 different times. And I've been pretty geared up multiple times too. So I actually play the game, unlike a lot of the content creators that have stopped making content for the game. Another question kind of related to the casual versus hardcore debate is grind. Is the game going to be too grindy? Well, the game is nothing but grind, literally nothing but grind right now. And phase 3, that's supposed to be changing. We're supposed to start getting questing and stuff. However, we're so far behind on that roadmap that they put out. Phase 3, if they actually launch phase 3 the way they did phase 2, it's not going to be anything like what's on that roadmap. It's going to be like phase 1.75. Because right now we're like phase 1.5 is kind of where we're at. And I also think as far as behind as they are on the roadmap, again, launch is a long ways out. I thought, as we go through this roadmap and see how quick they get content out, and if they're able to keep to that roadmap, maybe I would be able to back off my whole Ashes is probably still 5 years away stuff. But right now, I don't have much to hang my hat on in terms of thinking like it's going to be here much faster than I thought, other than I will say they got the desert out pretty fast. They get the desert biome fleshed out pretty quick. Still more work to do there. Technically, the Riverlands still has more work to do. Winstead and Miralith are by far the most developed nodes. The western nodes still need some work. New Ayla has 1 point of interest. Halcyon, a lot of these nodes still probably need a lot more POIs. Miralith and Winstead have way more POIs than all the others. Even Winstead, like there's areas that look like it's supposed to be a POI eventually, and it's just not. Like the northern part of Winstead, nothing there. You look at like Miralith, the eastern part of Miralith, no POIs there. It's just kind of empty. Whereas the west side has all kinds of POIs. The south part of Winstead, all kinds of POIs. So I think the Riverlands isn't even done yet. So the game, long ways to go. Unless they cut some stuff out, this game isn't launching anytime soon. And then gear imbalance is always something related to the grind aspect. And don't get me wrong, I love being able to grind to get more powerful. I love that aspect. But it also can be a problem. And a lot of Korean MMOs like this is based on, like new people that are coming into a game that's existed for years, they level up a bit and they start just getting one-shot by people as they level up. And so to get past that, you have to grind for months at a time to get on a somewhat even playing field. And I think that's a problem too. That's a problem for player retention. And I think that was a problem in games like ArcheAge and other games where if you were behind, you just felt like you couldn't catch up and you just there was kind of a quit point. And also the pay to win aspect exacerbated that to a degree. And, removing the pay to win from ArcheAge wouldn't have fixed the problems. There was a lot of problems in ArcheAge that were beyond just the pay to win aspects. Now, some of the problems from ArcheAge are definitely fixed. Like they've removed pay to win. They don't have the labor system. But does that mean like having a second account isn't a pretty big advantage in Ashes? I can tell you that a lot of the very sweaty people run multiple accounts. There's a lot of reasons to run multiple accounts. One is for scouting, for world bosses, and for caravan routes and things like that. That's one aspect of what people use a second account for. The other account is the huge bottleneck of processing. If you're involved in the artisan system at all, you know that processing is one hell of a bottleneck, and getting extra processing throughput where you take your main account and you shovel things to your second account to process everything for you, and then that process stuff comes back to your main account. That is basically a way to get around the processing restrictions. And in some aspects, the processing system is, to me, kind of like the labor system from ArcAge. You have a finite amount of basically labor in the form of processing. And so, again, second accounts are a pretty big advantage in this game. And so that problem is not solved. It's also more votes. It's more character slots because you only get 5 character slots. So second account counts are a pretty big advantage. Now, the vote thing is supposed to go away eventually, and some of this other stuff will get corrected. But right now, you can't really make the argument that they've solved a lot of the issues from ArcAge. There's still a lot of stuff that isn't really going to work if it makes it into launch. The next one, probably the biggest one that everybody talked about, is PvP always on. Is that a problem? My opinion, no. The corruption is so extremely overtuned that PvP always on is not a problem. In fact, I would make the opposite argument. I would say that corruption being so ridiculous means the PvP hungry players have to find other avenues. And that's why you see Guild War spam. That's why you see big fights over world bosses. That's why you see a lot of caravans get hit on certain servers. Unless you're on the Care Bear Day Linus server, then maybe not. But on Vira, caravans get hit all the time. So I think that needs a retune to be less restrictive and allow more PvP to where, like, it's not the end of the world if you get corrupted. Like, it should be one stack of corruption shouldn't be devastating. Multiple stacks probably should be devastating, but one stack shouldn't be absolutely terrible. And then in addition to that, there's the whole way to get rid of corruption is just go die and then somebody just loots your corpse. So you can still get around, you can skirt around it. All the loopholes that people expected to be there are there. So I don't know how they get around that either. The other thing is small guild versus Zerg. Is this game small guild friendly at all? It's not. It's not in any way small guild friendly. And this guild leveling tree they put in recently 100% solidifies that. Small guilds are going to take forever to level that up versus large guilds. Large guilds with more resources, bigger caravans, and better access to glint farms are going to be able to level that much faster. And with caravans being part of the guild system, while I love that they make caravans matter in this game, the idea that a small guild is going to give up the massive amounts of glint it takes to run one of these guild commodities, and the trade-off is the potential loss of gold that you could make from just running your own caravan and running normal commodities. I think that's a trade-off that many are not going to want to make. And again, I love that they've made caravans matter, because when they originally talked about caravans, it was just going to be for moving materials around, and I was like, well, why wouldn't you just make a couple runs with your character? That's going to be way safer than a caravan, which anybody can flag on without penalty. And it turns out nobody uses caravans for materials. Nobody uses them for materials. I've seen it happen in rare occasions, like people doing the quest or whatever, but that's about it. Like, people don't use it for that. It's the primary gold making method. Now, there are ways with gathering and with the artisan system to make a ton of gold as well, but probably the quickest way to make a bunch of gold is the caravan system. So I love that it matters, but I think the guild leveling system being only done via caravans, I think that's rough when you're talking about small guilds that are going to struggle to defend their caravans as it is. Now, this is the only way they can level. I think that's a flaw, a big time flaw that needs to be adjusted. And then if you look at the talent tree for the guilds, like, there's really nothing in there that I could see that really makes it better for small guilds. Even if you were to max it out, I don't think it like legitimately helps small guilds that much. I don't think it really evens the playing field. And no matter what you do in an open world game, Zergs are going to win. The only thing they've ever said, and I do agree with this, the large map and the full map isn't in yet. Obviously, we got like 10% of the map in. Once the full map is in, maybe it changes the dynamics a little bit where small guilds can carve out small little niches of the world. And I know that, like, even in the current state, there are like small guilds that have carved out parts of the world, like a lot on every server, like small little alliances have, gotten Nuela mayorship or the desert, like a desert mayorship, right? That kind of stuff has happened. So those kind of things can't happen. But as far as like tackling some of the biggest content or challenging for castles, challenge for anything, like small guilds will not have any part of that at all. I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. But again, a lot of this stuff is you have to look at, will we be able to retain players? And I know they said, well, we retained so many players in the alpha. That's not what I've seen. I see almost nobody playing anymore. The servers have died big time. Like there's not very many people playing at all. Well, that's kind of my video. Just kind of a rant on, remember all these questions that everybody had, and most of the content creators are like, yeah, they've solved all these problems. Don't worry about it. Everything's fixed before we even get in and test it. It's actually not. It's actually not. Unless there's major changes with the new content that comes in, changing up the game quite a bit, I don't think this game can actually have long-term appeal and staying power. I think it could be a waste of massive amounts of money and resources if they keep it so punishing for small groups, for casuals. And people are going to start calling me Carry Bear Arrive again in the comments. I know that's what is about to happen. But, I view myself as more hardcore than the average player. Even though I'm in my mid-40s, I still view myself as a fairly hardcore player. Every MMO has to have a casual pace. The statistics are most MMO players are casual to a degree, right? At least by MMO standards. An MMO player being casual means they play like 12 hours a week or something, whereas a casual player of any other game would be like 3 or 4 hours per week. But in MMOs, the math is a little different. That's really all I had. Just thinking about this a lot. Like, where is this game compared to what people thought this game was going to be and how it was going to solve all these things? And has it actually solved any of it? So far, a lot of it has not. Other than probably the biggest one, always on PvP, to me, people will still argue this, but to me, it's not a problem at all. In fact, it's overtuned. So that's it. See you guys in the next video.